Good morning. This is Barry Bryson, and I'm thanking you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're in the book of Amos. We're continuing our study of the book of Amos, and we took 2 days to introduce this book, and today we're going to get into the text. We've already read verses 1 through 4 where he identifies himself as a sheep herder. Later on he'll say that he's a farmer of sycamore fig trees. He's envisioning in visions concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, in the days of Jeroboam, that's Jeroboam II, son of Joash, king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. This makes him roughly contemporary with Micah and Isaiah. And this earthquake is an earth-shattering event, literally and figuratively, that Zechariah will refer to later on. And he begins with judgment, announcing judgment. The Lord roars from Zion and from Jerusalem. He utters his voice. The shepherd's pasture grounds mourn, and the summit of Carmel dries up. So God, from the sanctuary in Jerusalem, is roaring like a lion and announcing judgment. We also said that he begins his prophecy in such a brilliant way by mentioning judgment on the nations. And he really does geographically circle Israel as he brings judgment upon the nations. And I'm sure that they quite enjoy this first part because God's judgment is against their enemies or those nations with whom they have a tense relationship. He begins by judging the Syrians, Damascus, in verses 3 through 5. And so that Damascus is the capital city of Syria. And the Syrians are the ones who tried to haul away the prophet Elisha. Naaman was a Syrian general. The Syrians are their nearest and most bitter enemy. And he pronounces judgment upon the Syrians because of war crimes. He says, they threshed Gilead with implements of sharp iron. I will send fire upon the house of Hazael, consume the citadels of Ben-Hadad. These are their kings. So in other words, they are guilty of using terrible weapons against the civilian population. The next judgment is brought upon the Philistines, and Philistia, of course, is a league of 5 cities, and Gaza is one of those cities, and so he mentions Gaza and for 3 transgressions of Gaza and for 4, because they deported an entire population to deliver it up to Edom. And then he mentions some of their other cities, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Ekron. The one that he doesn't mention is Gath for some reason. But anyway, he's going to bring down their empire because of war crimes, because of the way they sold a population of civilians into slavery. Then he mentions the Phoenicians. That's Tyre and Sidon. These are what is current Lebanon, the Phoenicians. For 3 transgressions of Tyre and for 4, I will not revoke its punishment, because it delivered up an entire population to Edom and did not remember the covenant of brotherhood. So the Phoenicians are being judged again for war crimes and for breaking their international treaty. The same thing that the Philistines had done. And then there's prophecy against the Edomites. The Edomites, the Ammonites, and the Moabites are all a related people to the Jews. The Ammonites and the Moabites are descended from Abraham's nephew Lot, and the Edomites are descended from Esau. And so they receive terrible judgment as well. The Edomites are punished because he pursued his brother with the sword while he stifled his compassion. His anger also tore continually, and he maintained his fury forever. You did not act like a brother people to your brothers. And you continually hated them and were envious of them, and therefore you're going to be punished for this. The Ammonites are going to be punished for war crimes, and these are terrible war crimes. For 3 transgressions and for 4, I will not revoke punishment, because they ripped open the pregnant women of Gilead to enlarge their borders. because of war crimes, because some war is war, but some things are unconscionable, and because you treated pregnant women this way in your conquest, I will punish you, and that punishment will not be revoked. Then the Moabites. Remember, Ruth is a Moabitess, and the Moabites are people who practice child sacrifice. That's recorded, not only alluded to in Scripture, but an act of it. Their own king, King Mesha, sacrificed his own son in a war against Israel and Judah. Against the Moabites, because he burned the bones of the king of Edom to lime. And again, another egregious event. God is punishing these nations because it's not enough to win your battle. You have to then humiliate the person that you've defeated. And that act of humiliation, that rubbing it in their face, that going beyond what you need to do to win the day in order to rape and pillage and murder a people, that God will not forgive. That God will punish nation states for doing. And then there's judgment against Judah. And this is personal because this is about keeping of the law. I will not revoke the punishment of Judah. He's already promising captivity in these verses because they rejected the law of the Lord, have not kept his statutes, their lies have led them astray, and those after which their fathers walked, for breaking their personal covenant with God. I think that those things that the Nuremberg Tribunal said and asserted after the Second World War, that nations can be held accountable for crimes against humanity, find their root in this first chapter, in the first few verses of the second chapter of the book of Moab, because God says nation states are going to be held accountable for the atrocities that they commit in war, period. And all nation states, including our own, should pay attention to that judgment. Okay, he's going to start talking about judgment upon Israel tomorrow. We'll pick up there next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 Good Minutes.